couple years ago, I took a solo cross-country trip. It wasn't planned well. I just threw a bunch of crap into my trunk and started driving west. I had some cash saved, was feeling burned out professionally and personally, and just needed to disappear for a while. By the third day, I'd crossed Nebraska and was somewhere near the Wyoming border. I wanted to make it to Cheyenne, but left later than I should have and got caught in a long stretch of rain about an hour before dark. I get twitchy driving at night in unfamiliar places, so I pulled off when I saw signs for a small town with fuel, food, and one motel. That's all I needed. The place was called Prairie View Inn, one of those long, flat, two-story roadside motels with outdoor hallways and a single front lobby lit by greenish fluorescent lights. You know the type: immediately cracked parking lot, ice machine outside humming way too loud, maybe 4 cars parked although it looked like 40 rooms. I parked under a flickering gutter lamp and walked into the lobby. The clerk looked half asleep. She didn't ask many questions. Charged me $34 for the night. Paid in cash, no ID swipe. She gave me a keycard with a plastic tag attached and told me room 103, left side, lot facing. I took my own bag. Didn't see anyone else around. It had stopped raining by then, but the air was heavy and the sky glowed that weird orange you get when street lights reflect off mist. It was nearly silent. No highway noise, no crickets, just the hiss of wet tires in the distance. Room 103 was fine, cheap but not filthy. Classic motel setup. Double beds with paisley covers, single table and chair, wood laminate nightstand bolted to the wall. TV was on the dresser, unplugged. No fridge, no microwave. A painted over patch near the door that probably covered a hole. I didn't care. I was tired. I checked the sheets, locked the door, kicked off my shoes, and laid down on top of the cover. I was still wearing jeans, but too exhausted to bother changing. The room smelled faintly of bleach and stale air. The wall AC unit rattled every few minutes like it was catching something. I remember closing my eyes around 12:45 a.m., not quite asleep, just zoning out. Then I heard this noise from the other side of the wall. It wasn't loud. It wasn't anything that made me jump, but it was steady. Low, dragging sounds a few feet at a time, then quiet again. I thought maybe someone was pushing furniture in the next room or walking with a cane. Not unreasonable. These old buildings carry sound. But then it started again. Not heavier, just slower. Enough for me to notice that it wasn't random. It was coming from room 14, directly next to mine. Another pause. Then the sound continued. Same rhythm, same spacing. Only now it sounded closer to the wall. My wall. I sat up slightly. Just listened. I wasn't afraid yet, but something felt wrong about the pacing. It wasn't the sound itself. It was the way it never changed. Scrape, stop, over and over. And then it stopped completely. 5 minutes passed, nothing. The AC clicked on again. I almost forgot about it. Laid back, tried to settle. Then someone knocked on my door. Just once. It wasn't loud. It wasn't rushed. Just one single knock, perfectly placed right at shoulder height. I didn't answer. After a few seconds, I stood up slowly and approached the door. There was a shadow from the exterior hallway light bleeding under the doorframe. I didn't hear any footsteps. I brought my face quietly up to the peephole and looked out. Nothing. The walkway outside was empty. I stayed like that for a while, expecting a follow-up knock or some movement in the lot. But there was nothing. I turned both locks and engaged the security bar, just in case. Eventually I laid back down, no TV on, no sound, just waited. The noise returned, only this time it was coming from higher up on the wall, again from room 104's side. Dragging again, but now uninterrupted. Smooth glides back and forth, low enough to be an object brushing the wall, high enough to be chest level. I didn't move. I just listened. My breathing was shallow by then, still trying to keep calm, but something in my chest wouldn't settle. Another knock, same as before. One knock. Nothing else. I didn't answer, didn't move, didn't speak. Just stared at the locked door and waited. Nothing happened after that. The scratching continued for maybe another minute. Then silence. I sat upright in bed until daylight started bleeding behind the curtain. I don't know if I fell asleep again or blacked out. I didn't turn out the light. As soon as it felt right, maybe 6:30 a.m. I packed my bag and headed for the front desk. The woman there was the same one from last night. I asked as casually as I could if anyone had stayed in room 104. She stared at her clipboard and said, "No, that side's been out of use for a few weeks, something with a water pipe." I asked if maintenance had been in there overnight. She shook her head. "Nah, the key's locked up." "Why? Did you hear something?" I said no. I handed her the key, nodded, got into my car and left. That whole drive west, I kept trying to logic it out. Maybe someone broke into 104, started squatting. Maybe a staff member used the room without logging it. Maybe it was all in my head. The scraping, the knock, the pressure in my lungs when the noise moved closer. But even now, years later, when I think about it, it's not the knock that bothers me. It's the fact there was only one. And how I knew, without any noise or whisper or footstep, that someone was standing outside that door, listening, waiting to see if I'd come to it. A few years ago, I house sat for my aunt while she was on a 2-week vacation. She lives about an hour from where I went to school. Quiet rural neighborhood, mid-sized house, not isolated but not exactly close to anything either. I didn't mind. I had papers to catch up on, needed space to study, and figured it would be a great break from dorm life. She left me a key, some cash for groceries, and a checklist: feed her cat, water the plants, bring in the mail, and take the trash bins out by the end of the week. I'd stayed there before, so I already knew the layout: 3 bedrooms upstairs and a basement that she never used. Before leaving, she walked me through everything and said, "Don't worry about the basement. The door stays locked. Just leave it that way." She said it like it was normal. No smile, no warning tone, just part of the checklist. I nodded, didn't ask questions. The week started off fine. I studied during the day, cooked simple stuff at night, watched movies with the cat on my lap. My aunt doesn't have internet, says it's a waste. So I was relying on offline files, notes, and downloaded lectures. No Wi-Fi made things a bit slow but peaceful. By the 3rd night, I started hearing noises from below the floorboards. Not loud, more like distant tapping or movement. At first I thought it was the furnace or water heater kicking on, but the house stayed warm and the tank wasn't running. The cat would sometimes perk up at the same moment, ears stiff, like it heard it too but didn't care enough to go investigate. I did a walk around the house just to check for any obvious issues. Nothing seemed off. I stood near the basement door and, out of habit, reached for the doorknob. It didn't move, still locked. I felt the air near the gap under the door. Cold air was coming through. It felt just a little colder than the rest of the house. Not freezing, but heavier, like a draft from concrete. The noise didn't come back again that night. The next day I drove into town for groceries and to upload a few assignments at a cafe. I checked my messages and saw one from my aunt saying she'd be out of range for most of the trip and only checking her phone once a day. I didn't bring up the basement. Figured it wasn't worth bothering her. That night, the tapping started again at 1:00 a.m. I had just turned off the main light and gotten into bed when I heard it. This time it wasn't just faint knocks. It sounded more like pacing. I got up and listened closely. 3 or 4 soft steps, each one evenly spaced like someone walking slowly across a concrete floor. Then a pause, then tapping again. Same place. I can't explain why, but the sound of those steps made my back straighten. It wasn't the volume. It was the rhythm. Like someone deliberately walking just below me, in the pitch dark, knowing exactly where they were going. I stayed up the rest of the night. Didn't go near the basement door. The cat slept calmly beside me like nothing was off. But I was wide awake until 5:00 a.m. when the tapping stopped. The next morning I went to check the door. Still locked, but something had changed. There were scrape marks on the inside frame. Long, narrow lines etched into the wood, just visible around the edge where the light hit it. Like someone had dragged keys or a screwdriver along the inside edge. I'm sure they weren't there before. I stared at them for a long time. Then I stepped back and walked away. I didn't hear anything that night. But the next afternoon, as I was cleaning out the pantry, I noticed something odd. A single key was sitting near the back of the hallway drawer, the shallow one with batteries, tape, old coupons, random bits of hardware. The key was brass, unmarked, clean. It looked newer than anything else in there. I picked it up and tried it in different door knobs out of boredom. It didn't open anything until I got to the basement door. The key fit, but I didn't turn it. I don't know why. Maybe because the second it slid into the lock, I felt like I was doing something I wasn't supposed to. The weight of the air changed, like the house itself was listening. So I left it there and went back upstairs. That night, the tapping came back. Only this time, it wasn't beneath me. It came from the door itself. Slow, measured a knock. Then two more. Then nothing. I stayed in the kitchen with the light on, staring at the door from across the hallway. No movement, no sound after that. I stayed in that chair until sunrise. The next few days passed quietly. No more sounds, no new scratches. I moved the key to my backpack, zipped it up, and left it there. I didn't want it in the same drawer. There was no reason, really, just instinct. On the last night, it rained for the first time since I'd been there. A consistent downpour. I read in bed for a while, tried to sleep early so I'd be up in time to clean and do laundry before leaving. Sometime after midnight, I woke up without knowing why. The house was quiet. The power hadn't gone out. The cat was curled next to my knees, but the bedroom door was open. I never leave it open. From where I lay, I could see out into the hall, just past the stair rail. I couldn't see the basement door, but I knew it was there. In the dark, I stayed perfectly still. Then I heard soft creaking, floorboards, from the lower hallway. Slow footsteps traveling across the base of the stairs. I kept my eyes on that one slice of hallway, trying to catch a shadow. A flicker of movement. Nothing. The steps stopped. Then I heard the sound of the basement door creaking shut. Not slamming, not forced, just slowly easing itself closed. A minute passed. Then another. I got up and moved toward the stairs like I was sleepwalking. I didn't remember deciding to go. I just knew I needed to check in daylight that the door was closed. When I got down there, it was closed, locked too. But the key was back in the drawer. I didn't touch it. I closed the drawer and stood in the empty house, not breathing. That was the day I left. After my aunt got home, she called out of courtesy and to say thanks. I didn't say anything about the sounds or the door or the key. I just asked how long she'd been keeping the basement locked. She kind of laughed and said, "It's been sealed since I moved in. The last owner's kid used to sleepwalk. One night he walked down there and wouldn't come up. Whole family tore the basement apart looking for him. They swore they heard him every night after that." She said it like it was an old ghost story. Then she asked where I found the key. I said, "Back hallway drawer." Before I moved states, I used to pick up extra money driving for a Rideshare app. Small towns, late night requests, quiet highways. As long as I kept the car clean and didn't mind the occasional drunk 2M pickup, it paid surprisingly well. My last week on the job, I got a ping around 1:50 in the morning for a pickup about 10 minutes outside of town. App said it was a scheduled ride. Those were usually people going to early flights or overnight workers heading home. The pin was in a rural area, just outside of city limits. Not quite farmland, but on the edge of those wide, empty two-lane roads where headlights end and darkness just goes on. Not unusual though. Some people lived in converted barns or trailers out that way. I accepted the trip, put on some music, and drove out. The pavement turned to gravel, then back to cracked asphalt. GPS said I was approaching the location, a spot marker that seemed to hover in the middle of nowhere. Left side was a pasture, right side nothing but dark tree lines. When I slowed down to check the address, I noticed a small pull-off at the edge of a field. According to the app, that was it. No house, no lights, just a blank marker and wait for rider message. I texted the number on file. "Hey, I'm outside. Just let me know when you're ready." No reply. The seconds dragged on. Outside the car, it was dead quiet. No wind, no traffic. I cut the engine, but left the battery on so I could keep my lights running, and the app pulled up. I figured maybe they were running late or on the phone inside. Who knows? That's when I saw the van. It wasn't parked nearby, not at first. It was probably 500, 600 feet into the field. No movement, no lights. Just sitting out there in the misty grass, sideways enough that I could only see the shape from the corner of my eye. I hadn't seen it driving in, but that's not surprising. It was dark as hell, and it blended right into the tree line. It didn't seem threatening, just odd. Maybe someone lived there. Maybe it was unrelated. I kept waiting, 5 minutes. Then 10. Still no messages, no movement on the app. When I looked back up, the van had moved. Not much. Just closer by maybe 20 feet. Still not moving in real time. No headlights, no engine. Just noticeably closer. I looked down thinking I imagined it. When I looked again 5 minutes later, it was closer again. Still no lights. Still no tire noise. I turned off the music completely. Just engine hum. Dashboard lights and my hands tightening around the steering wheel. The van was now maybe 300 feet away. That's when I really started feeling it. Not panic, but something deeper. That sense when logic fails to explain what you're seeing and your body fills the space with unease. I turned around to scan behind me, just checking my blind spots. No one there. But out the front windshield in the exact same spot, the van was even closer. This time I hadn't looked away. It had moved. There was no sound. It had crossed a distance of maybe 40 feet, but I'd been facing the road the entire time. The app still showed, waiting for rider. I hit cancel. Nothing happened. The cancel button didn't respond. Just stayed grayed out like it was locked. Then my dashboard blinked once like the battery dipped. Not fully out, just a flicker, like something tripped the signal. I put the car into reverse. Still no response to the app, no reply to my texts. The road behind me looked narrow but passable. That's when I saw headlights in my rear view mirror, low to the ground. Absolutely stationary. I flicked on my brights. The second vehicle, not the van, was sitting at the entry point of the road behind me. No movement, no visible driver, just a car blocking the only way back to the highway. I didn't even think. I threw the car into drive, cut hard across the rocks, and aimed off-road through the field. I hadn't off-roaded in my car before, but I had no pause, just tires grinding through wet dirt and grass, tall stalks hitting the underside, windshield fog starting to rise from the humidity. The van didn't move. I passed it wide, staying at least 30 feet from the bumper. Still no lights, no motion inside it. It might have been empty the whole time, but the rear doors were open, just slightly. Like someone had stepped out recently. I didn't stop until I hit fence posts. Dead end field. I took a few turns deeper in, circled back toward a different road I'd driven earlier, and got back to real streets 10 minutes later. Adrenaline was high, but I kept driving. I didn't even check my phone until I reached a gas station with other cars and real lighting. The app was still frozen. The trip was marked in progress, and the location ping was still sitting in that field. I didn't report it. The company doesn't care unless there's police involved, and there wasn't anything to legally prove. But I saved the GPS screenshot. I still look at it sometimes. The pin, the original pickup spot, had no registered address, just coordinates. I found the nearest house 2 miles away. That check in point was open land, and as far as I can tell, the van and the car that blocked me weren't part of the same trip. They weren't chasing me. They were waiting.